Hey, why is tonight's dinner frozen food? You are a full-time housewife, so neglecting housework is unacceptable. Stop being lazy. I'm sorry. I have a high fever today, and I'm not comfortable even when I am lying down. I don't want to hear such excuses.
Despite me suffering from a high fever, my mother-in-law demanded that I do the usual household chores. Even just lying down was difficult, let alone cooking a meal. However, my mother-in-law got furious and started to rage at me because I prepared frozen food. My fever was getting higher and I was dazed, and I was nearing my limit. Then, my mother-in-law grabbed a vase near the window and suddenly threw it at me.
Since you don't understand when I just say it, I'll make you learn with your body. Oh,
What are you doing? I narrowly dodged it, but when I looked back, my brother-in-law, who came to check on me, was covered in blood. At that moment, I made up my mind that I would never forgive this mother-in-law of mine. I got married 3 years ago and now I'm a 28-year-old housewife living with my in-laws. Shortly after marrying my husband, I started living in my in-laws' house, and it was challenging at first as everything was new to me. My father-in-law had already passed away, and at the same time, my mother-in-law's illness was diagnosed. We thought it was not safe for her to live alone, so my husband and I decided to live with her in her house. We wanted to have children in the future, and my husband had a decent income, so I became a full-time housewife right after we got married. As a result, I ended up taking care of my mother-in-law, so becoming a full-time housewife was the right choice. But I didn't have much time to relax, and it was challenging at first.
hey, you didn't clean properly. If you're living here, you should clean more thoroughly. I'm quite fastidious, you know. I'm sorry. I'll clean it again.
At first, I didn't think my mother-in-law had ill intentions. She's probably naturally neat and tidy, and the way I was doing the housework probably didn't meet her expectations. So I tried my best to earn her approval. However, my mother-in-law's opinion of me didn't improve, but rather got worse. I faithfully followed my mother-in-law's instructions for household chores, and my husband praised my cooking, so it wasn't like I was doing a terrible job. However, my mother-in-law started criticizing every little thing I did.
When you can only do such simple chores and cooking. Yet you got married and became a full-time housewife? You're living off my son's salary. Don't you feel ashamed?
Lately, my mother-in-law stopped giving specific instructions for household chores and started criticizing my personality and complaining about vague things instead, and it turned into so-called daughter-in-law bullying. To be honest, the bullying from my mother-in-law caused me significant mental stress. Moreover, despite claiming to be ill, she is perfectly fine and active every day. I began to question whether it was necessary to continue living with her. She doesn't do any household chores, using her illness as an excuse, and all she does is complain. The more I lived with my mother-in-law under these circumstances, the closer I came to my breaking point. One day, it was the day when my brother-in-law, who had been on a long overseas business trip, was returning to Canada, so we were preparing.
He's coming back today, so make sure to prepare a feast, okay? And make sure to clean every corner of the house. Got it? Understood. Is there any particular dish I should make in advance? How would I know about such things? What kind of dishes would please a man in his 30s? You should know best. Just make something suitable, and make sure not to embarrass me. Got it?
I had only met my brother-in-law at the wedding, so I didn't know him well enough to know his favorite or disliked dishes, or if he had any allergies. And yet, my mother-in-law threw everything at me, so I was annoyed, but it was a common occurrence. I tried my best to let it slide to avoid accumulating stress from what my mother-in-law said. After that, I contacted my husband to ask about my brother-in-law's favorite foods and dislikes. And then I started preparing. Thanks to my husband's help, my brother-in-law really enjoyed the dinner that day. When everyone had gone to bed and I was tidying up, my brother-in-law came to me.
Are you okay? It's already quite late, but if it's just cleaning up, I can help. No. I can handle it on my own, don't worry.
I answered like that, although I was a little unsettled. That's because I knew that, if my mother-in-law found out that I had let my brother-in-law help with the housework, she would complain about it. My mother-in-law saw me not as a daughter-in-law, but purely as a housekeeper, and I was supposed to do everything. There was a clear hierarchy within this household, and it was only natural that I, who was at the very bottom, would be treated as a servant. It's true that I had worked all day and was tired, and I wanted to go to bed early. But I thought it was better to push myself despite my tired body than to endure my mother-in-law's complaints. Before she went to bed, my mother-in-law ordered me to finish cleaning up by the end of the day, and prepare breakfast before everyone wakes up the next morning, so I intended to complete all of that today. However, unlike my oblivious husband, my brother-in-law seemed to have immediately noticed my unnatural behavior.
I've been sensing it for a while. Your complexion doesn't look as good as it did at the wedding day, does it? You also appear to have lost quite a bit of weight. Did my mom say something to you?
I was caught off guard by his accurate observation, and for a moment, I got goosebumps. However, if I were to confide in my brother-in-law, and my mother-in-law heard it, I had no idea what would happen later. I assured him that I was fine and asked him to return to his bedroom. After that, perhaps she wanted to look good in front of my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law made me cook lavish meals almost every day. The usual household chores were already quite demanding, so my body was becoming more and more fatigued. About a week after my brother-in-law returned, my body, exhausted from the strenuous lifestyle, finally reached its limit and I developed a high fever. By that time, my temperature had already exceeded 39 degrees, and my body was at its breaking point. However, my mother-in-law heartlessly uttered cold words to me in that state.
Hey! Don't think you can take advantage just because you have a fever, okay? That's not an excuse, you know. You're still expected to do the household chores as usual, and prepare meals, you know?
In response to this unexpected behavior, I thought that the mother-in-law standing before me was a genuine demon. Given my condition, I should have ignored whatever my mother-in-law said. However, by this time, I had already been convinced that I had to absolutely obey whatever my mother-in-law said. Since my husband was busy with work, my brother-in-law, who was at home, bought fever-reducing medicine from the pharmacy for me. I took it, mustered the strength to get up despite my exhausted body, and managed to prepare dinner using frozen food items. In the presence of my mother-in-law, I couldn't ask my brother-in-law to make dinner. However, unable to do the household chores, when I simply returned to bed, my mother-in-law entered the room with a devilish expression.
You! How dare you serve frozen food for dinner? What are you thinking? I let you live here as a housekeeper. No matter what the circumstances, you're supposed to do the housework and cook the meals.
My mother-in-law's face turned red, and she approached me aggressively. As my fever came back, and I was half dazed, it was all I could do to respond to my mother-in-law's words. Perhaps angered by my attitude, my mother-in-law took an outrageous action.
Since you don't understand when I just say it, I'll make you learn with your body.
My mother-in-law said with a flushed face, and then she grabbed a vase near the window and hurled it at me. I could have the energy to respond to my mother-in-law's words, but my instincts must have moved my body. I narrowly avoided the vase, but the vase crashed onto the wooden floor, making a loud noise as it shattered. I was horrified by my mother-in-law for this outrageous behavior, But soon we were both left speechless by a loud scream from behind.
Ouch! Damn it!
It was my brother-in-law who had come into the room at the perfect moment, because I had asked him to bring water and fever medicine since my medication had run out and my fever had come back. Although the vase didn't directly hit him, the fragments struck my brother-in-law's foot, causing him to bleed. Perhaps when he was surprised, he accidentally stepped on the vase shards, and pieces of the vase were embedded in the sole of his foot. Both my mother-in-law and I were left speechless at the gruesome sight, and we were momentarily frozen. However, I quickly regained my composure and immediately called an ambulance. Perhaps due to the tension or shock, the moment I called the ambulance, I also collapsed on the spot, and in the end, both my brother-in-law and I were taken to the hospital together. My condition was not as severe as my brother-in-law's, as it was just a high fever, but my brother-in-law had numerous fragments lodged in his foot, leading to an emergency surgery. Although his life was not in danger, he suffered significant injuries. Then my husband rushed to the scene.
What happened? Can you explain what's going on?
Well, I accidentally dropped the vase when I was holding it. I was truly infuriated by my mother-in-law's excuses even at this point. However, I couldn't stay silent in this situation. I made up my mind to tell the truth.
First of all,
I was in bed with a fever.
I think it's because I've been sleep deprived recently. My fever was over 39 degrees, and I was feeling dizzy, so I was resting in bed today.
Then,
your mother came into my room and started cursing at me, saying that as a housekeeper, I should do the household chores, regardless of the circumstances.
wait,
What are you talking about? I didn't say anything like that. I thought your fever wasn't that serious, so I asked if she could help with the household chores for a bit. But is it true that you made her do the housework until she got a fever due to sleep deprivation? Lately, I've been working overtime a lot, and I've been coming home late most of the time, so I didn't know. But you were always awake regardless of the time. Was that because my mom instructed you to?
Well. As my husband pressed her for a clear answer, my mother-in-law's position became increasingly unfavorable. My husband was busy, so he would come home late every day, and when he did, he would eat and go straight to bed. As a result, I didn't have time to talk to him about his mother, but fortunately, my supportive brother-in-law was there for me. My husband had no knowledge of what was happening at home. So, to be honest, I didn't know if he would take my side or my mother-in-law's side. But he fully sided with me.
And what about the vase incident? I don't understand the situation. My hand slipped. No. I think you'll understand if you listen to this recorded evidence.
Huh? Thanks to the medicine, my fever had significantly subsided, and I was thinking clearly to some extent. I immediately took out my smartphone from my pocket and played the recorded data. That recorded data was something my brother-in-law had recommended when he came to take care of me. Seeing me collapse, my brother-in-law couldn't ignore the situation and interrogated me. I finally confessed about the constant mistreatment I had been enduring. My brother-in-law sided with me and advised me to record the usual conversations to gather evidence of my mother-in-law's mistreatment. Just as I was about to put it into practice, the vase incident happened. Therefore, the audio of that moment was completely recorded, and when my husband listened to it, he became furious and his face turned red in an instant.
You threw the vase at someone? What the heck? If you had hit the wrong spot, it would have been a disaster. What are you thinking?
Well,
this is, it's a misunderstanding, I mean. I don't want to hear your excuses. What you're doing is not normal as a person. You're like a lunatic.
Wait a minute.
There's no need to say such terrible things. I was just trying to raise the bar for her, as a housewife.
I didn't mean any harm.
If you did it without any ill intentions, then you're a real psychopath, aren't you? Oh, whatever. I'm disappointed in you, and I'll think carefully about how to handle this going forward.
When my husband said that, my mother-in-law grew paler and squatted down on the spot. However, my considerate husband, who was thinking of me, immediately took my mother-in-law out of the hospital room. That night, my husband came to my hospital room again with my brother-in-law. We discussed how to deal with my mother-in-law going forward, and it was decided that we would have a conversation with her on the day of our discharge.
I truly apologize. I understand fully that what I did caused trouble for everyone. I am truly remorseful. Please forgive me.
While my brother-in-law and I were hospitalized, my husband must have given her a stern lecture. My mother-in-law looked worn out, and her usual demeanor of bullying was nowhere to be seen. However, no matter how she apologized, it wouldn't heal the wounds in my heart, and my brother-in-law was a victim of assault.
Well, I have proof, so I'm going to file a regular lawsuit. I'll demand compensation from you, and in the worst case, you might get arrested, you know?
What?
Wait a minute. Arrested? What on earth are you talking about? You're going to sue your own mother? Who does that? It was just an accident. Weren't you genuinely remorseful for what you did? If you're truly remorseful, you wouldn't be acting like this, right?
When I said that, my mother-in-law fell silent, unable to refute. However, it seemed that she had not expected to be sued, and even though she remained silent, it was obvious that she was in a panic. However, as if to further push my mother-in-law into a state of despair, my brother-in-law resumed the conversation.
What I received was assault, regardless of whether it was within the family or not, and it's considered a criminal act that warrants punishment, you know? Moreover, because it pierced the sole of my foot, it's causing me some difficulty in walking. How are you going to take responsibility for that? So, I truly apologize for that matter. I am remorseful, but... Well, if you truly feel sorry, then you should properly atone for your actions in accordance with the law, right? This country is governed by the rule of law. I won't seek personal revenge, and you should be held accountable in a proper legal manner.
Realizing that she could be sued in any form, my mother-in-law was visibly discouraged on the spot. Did she really believe that she could be forgiven with just one apology after doing something like this? If that's the case, she's too naive as a person. And if she thinks being sued is the end of it, she's gravely mistaken.
Oh, and we'll be moving out of this house. We won't provide any financial support, and I don't know what will happen with the mortgage on this house. Good luck. I won't send money to a criminal either, so consider us estranged. Wait a minute. If you do that, how am I supposed to live? Don't be so irresponsible. I'm the one who raised you, remember? When you guys were younger, no matter how many times you chose the wrong path, I had always watched over you. Is this how you repay me? It is a parent's role to correct their children's mistakes when they are young, isn't it? Once you become an adult, those who take the wrong path are abandoned. That's the harsh reality, right? You, who have lived longer than us, should know that better than anyone else, don't you think? The world isn't that forgiving.
My husband and brother-in-law declared, and my mother-in-law's expression seemed to surpass despair. She couldn't say anything at all and just sat there. It was as if her soul had truly left her, that's how it seemed. However, my mother-in-law never gave up until the end.
Please. I don't have work experience, and there's no place that would hire an elderly person like me at my age. And what about this house? Do you even know how much mortgage is left? I can't pay it off on my own. Even if I sell it, I won't be able to pay off the mortgage. I can't live by myself. I hate to say this, but you've been looking down on me and mistreated me all along, haven't you? You've lived your life without trying to build trust with us, only thinking about yourself. So it's no wonder things turned out like this. It's too late for you to regret now. It's in your best interest to figure out a way to live on.
It must have been humiliating for my mother-in-law to be told this by me, but I finally vented all my frustrations. Perhaps the vase could have hit me directly, causing a serious injury, and the resentment from enduring the harassment until my breaking point was significant. Furthermore, even my husband, who knows everything, and my injured brother-in-law would never take my mother-in-law's side. My father-in-law had already passed away, so my mother-in-law doesn't have anyone to rely on, and she will be left to live a lonely life from now on. Well, regardless of the circumstances, neither my husband, brother-in-law, nor I had any intention of helping my mother-in-law, so we cut ties with her and ended our relationship with her. After that, I demanded compensation from my mother-in-law for the daughter-in-law bullying, and my brother-in-law filed charges against her for assault. As a result, my mother-in-law was compelled to pay us compensation, but there was no place to lend money to my elderly mother-in-law. Moreover, since she couldn't afford to pay the mortgage for her house, and couldn't continue living there, she ended up selling everything. However, even after putting everything up for sale, she struggled to find buyers, and in the end, my mother-in-law had to work multiple part-time jobs, resembling day labor, to make ends meet and fulfill the payments to us. By the way, have you heard about my mom's current job? I haven't been in contact, so I don't know. But she must be working, because she has been transferring the money every month. It seems like she's doing quite demanding jobs, like night shifts cleaning hotels or caregiving, juggling multiple jobs. We don't know how long she can keep it up with her illness. Well, it seems like no one is going to help her. That's expected. It's the consequence of what she has done on her own. I have no intention of helping her either. Regardless of the situation, it seems that neither my husband nor my brother-in-law have any intention of helping my mother-in-law, and I feel the same way. By the way, I found out I was pregnant just last month, and now my husband and I are able to lead a happy life together. If I were to engage in actions that would worsen relationships like my mother-in-law did, or if I were to go too far, there would undoubtedly be consequences. In order to not waste my life, I must absolutely avoid repeating my mother-in-law's mistakes.